Greetings, greetings, family. We are live. Welcome, welcome to another Sister Shanice show. As you can see, we've got a wonderful lineup of guests in the house. We've got our resident presenters, none other than Dr. Abu. Rise up, Dr. Abu. How you doing?
Voodoo family, Voodoo Sister Sheila, Brother Chris, Brother Vincent, Sister Shanice, rise up, man. And to our family, in the audience, rise up all the time. More Voodoo.
More voodoo, back at you, Dr. Abu. Rise up, rise up. Also, we want to rise up Sister Sheila in the house. Whoops, you're on mute.
Oh, okay. Rise up, everyone. Rise up. I'm reminded of photographs I used to take as a child, and we'll be told, smile, smile, say cheese. But when I come to the show, I have this wide smile, and it just can't go away. That is how happy I am to be here. I've missed this space. I'm glad to be here. Rise up, Dr. Abu. Rise up, Brother Vincent, Brother Chris, and Sister Shanice, and the audience as well. It is a pleasure to be here. We are going to have a blast. I give thanks.
Oh, rise up yourself as well, Sister Sheila. It's always a privilege to have you in the house. And family, as you can see, we've got two guests joining us this evening. We've got Brother Vincent from Ghana. Rise up, Brother Vincent.
Rise up, Sister Shanice, Dr. Abu, and Sister Sheila, and Brother Chris. Happy Jenny.
Hey, rise up. Glad to have you in the house. And my brother, if you were to greet us in your mother tongue language, what sort of greeting would we get from you?
Oh, that's lovely. From the Akan community here in Ghana, we will say Akwaba, means welcome. But in the evening, we say Mamamu Ajo. Mimamo Ajo.
Mimamo Ajo. Akwaba. Right. Mimamo Ajo. Hey, I like it.
Right.
Ajo. Love it. Rise up, Brother Vincent, and everyone from the Akan family as well. Brother Chris, joining us from the Bahamas. How you doing? Oh, Brother Chris may have frozen. Hopefully he will be back with us very, very soon. Rise up, Brother Chris. Okay. Yes, I saw a movement.
Yeah.
Welcome, Brother Chris.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a little drop again just now. I think we're okay now because they actually switched networks, and I think this one should be a little better. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we welcome you.
Thank you.
And we also welcome our viewers who are in the chat, who are viewing us from their home and viewing us from somewhere in the world. And you know how we like to do it. We like to know where in the world you're actually viewing us from. So to the family who are watching, tell us, where are you viewing us from? We welcome you. We thank you so much for joining us. We have Obiaman in the Oz. Rise up, Obiaman. He's saying, bless up in advance, family. He was the first one in the doors tonight. Yeah, man, we should have a prize, shouldn't we, for the first one in the door on a Wednesday evening. And we have Lily in the house who's saying greetings to the panel. Greetings back at you, Sister Lily. We've got Betty in the house from North Carolina. Welcome from North Carolina. We've got Brian in the house. He's saying the all-time great show on fire, and he's watching from Kenya. Welcome. We've got Sister Afro-Jamo in the house saying greetings, Sister Shanice and panel, to all my real African brothers and sisters worldwide in the chat, watching from Ghana. You've got someone from Ghana there, Brother Vincent, Sister Afro-Jamo, who regularly joins us on a Wednesday evening from Ghana. Welcome, sis. And she says, Obiaman, wagwa, my brother. They know each other now in the chat. Yeah, we've got a family there. Bless up yourself, Alfred. Alfred is watching us from Ghana. Okay, someone's got there. Let me just make sure it's not me. You know, say I'm me. Let me just mute myself there, sir. Sorry about that, family. Yes, sir. So rise up, everybody. We got we got the Jamaican Junkanoo channel in the house as well. Bless up, family. Family, Sister Veronica watching us from the Gambia. Rise up yourself, sis. Brother Alfred from Ghana. We've got a beautiful international family, and I'm sure there are some watching from the UKKK as well. Remember, family, as you come through the door, to also give us a thumbs up, give us a like. We would much appreciate love that indeed. So I've got a few announcements for our Blacktastic family. And also just want to thank all of the subscribers, those of you who have already subscribed, thank you. If you haven't subscribed as yet, come on, what are you waiting for? Please do subscribe. And let me give you a couple of announcements now. We're actually organizing a fun fundraiser for Haiti, St. Vincent, and for the Galaxy Academy School. Now, I'm sure most of you by now have probably heard about the works that we're doing in support of the Haiti, St. Vincent. Some of you have actually donated previously. Thank you so much. Well, we're taking it to another level. And on the 26th of September, we are having a sponsored event in the park, and volunteers are coming forward. They're getting their sponsorship forms, and then they're getting people to sponsor them, and they're going to do either a sponsored walk, a sponsored run, or a sponsored bike ride or skate around the park to raise funds for Haiti, St. Vincent, and the Galaxy Academy School. I was actually in touch with Brother Sean just before the show. He's given me an update of what's going on in Haiti, and he said that the support that they were getting, the financial support that they were getting, is drying up because things are getting quite political there at the moment. It's a madness. They're finding out that the current president was actually involved in the assassination of the previous president. Or there's gangs on the streets who were letting off gunshots. All sorts of things has been going on. But some good news as well. The two babies that we sponsored to go to the Dominica of Republic for treatment, they're much better now. And they're making arrangements for them to come back to Haiti. So that's excellent news. They do need a bit more money in order to sustain themselves until they get back. And we've been hearing, oh my gosh, about the racism that they have been experiencing in Dominica Republic. Just imagine one island, split in two, one half is, behaving in a condescending way towards the other half. They're same people. I mean, the mindset is just crazy. And so, they're experiencing all sorts of abuse. And so the sooner they get back home, the better. So we want to support them to come back home as well. So we're doing that sponsored event. And then later on the same day, so family, if you're not local, and you want to support the Haiti, St. Vincent and Gambia school initiative, you can join us by Zoom. And wouldn't it be wonderful if every single one of the Sister Shanice Show family members was to join us on Zoom for that event? Wow. You can actually get your ticket now, and tickets prices start at £5. Everything that we raise is going to go out to the charities, and it's going to be a wonderful, fun fundraiser event that will start 5 p.m. GMT +1 time. And we've got music, we've got auctions, we've got artists, we've got speakers, we've got international guests. It's going to be a fun day. It's a wonderful lineup. So just go to Eventbrite for your ticket. I'll post the link in a little while in the chat so that you can save the link and buy your ticket a bit later. So that's where you register for that event. It's going to be great. We've got a wonderful lineup of artists. We got, a number of radio DJs that are going to be doing the sponsored walk or the sponsored bike ride. We've got Tipper Irie, one of our artists, Mr. Mighty, one of our DJs from another radio station. We've got our brother Jack Iron and our brother Kwame from Galaxy Afiwi that's going to be doing a walk, and one's going to be doing a bike ride. We have been getting some support from the family, so we're delighted about that. And so it'd be wonderful if all of you were to join us on Sunday, the 26th of September, at our event. And also, just to let you know that we've even set up a GoFundMe page as well, and so you can support via GoFundMe. I wonder if I share screen, if you'll be able to actually see the flyers so that you know what I'm actually looking at. Let's bring that up right now. So let's do a share screen. Let me find the right window. Here we are. And so this is the flyer, and let me do full screen. Where you're gone, put that up there. Little, here we are. Here is the flyer. Hopefully you can see that. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, you can see it. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So this is a flyer. We're asking if you can donate via the GoFundMe page, because as it says, we're supporting our people on the ground. Family, we've been working hard to make these links on the ground, on the mamaland, and in the places where it really counts. And you know, we've also managed to finance some barrels to go down to St. Vincent, and they've been packing them and sent us videos of the things that they've been buying with the money that we sent them. If we get a chance, I'll play that for you a little later. And here's the Fun Day event, and this is the Urgent Fundraiser Zoom event that we're going to be having. And here's a flyer for the Fun Walk, Run, Bike, or Skate Ride. Yes, and also I was at this event yesterday evening, and my, what a great event it was as well. We had Professor PLO Lumumba, who was, you know, having a conversation and a discussion with us. We also had King Joshua Mapongo as well. And, you know, he had so much time for the audience. He even stayed behind after the show for an extra hour so that we could have a discussion with him. And it's all about us uniting as a people. Those of us in the diaspora, those of us on the motherland, those of us in Caribbean, you know, all coming together in unity. And it was in celebration. And well, actually, it's one of 3 events that's celebrating Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's Earth Day. And so just want to invite you all to the next event that's going to be happening on Friday, the 27th. And you can actually go online to get a ticket. I'll blow it up a little later so that you can see the details and where to get your ticket from. Okay, family. Let's get going with the show, shall we? Because wow, we are going to be learning so much today. We've got a guest in the house, 2 guests actually, Brother Vincent and Brother Chris. And first of all, family, I want to give them the platform so they can deliver their presentation to us. Let me ask Brother Vincent first to introduce himself, then Brother Chris to introduce himself to you all, and then for them between them to take it away. And we will sit back and just learn. Okay, go ahead, Brother Vincent.
Oh, Sister Shanice, good evening, family. It's so great meeting you in your homes today. It's so wonderful to be part of the Afro family, and what a great heritage we have and appreciate. And we always want to live together because we share common aspiration, and we bedeviled by the same thing, and so it's easier fighting the common evil that befalls us. And to the family, I'm Vincent Boache. I'm anthropologist, I'm a tourism enthusiast, and cultural researcher, but not in depth like Christopher though. But I live in Ghana. I operate a medical tourism organization, and we do projects for the Ministry of Tourism, Ghana Ministry of Tourism, cultural and heritage programs.
my brother over there being a little modest, he's also the founder of the World Junkanoo Foundation, and he is the one that actually provided a platform for me and helped me a lot with my research as well, much of which I'm about to bring forward. But just to introduce myself, I'm Christopher Omoshango Davis, son of Shango Davis, hail from the Bahamas. I'm a local historical researcher. I'm also a project manager. I'm a former soccer player. I used to represent the Bahamas in soccer as well. So locally, a lot of people know me in that vein. But only in the past few years or so have people began to see me as a historian, and I've done extensive research on including Africans in the Bahamas in the wider story of the Ma'afa, not only the ways we suffered from it, but the ways that we fought against it. And furthermore, I've been doing a lot of research, and I've been very much disturbed, and this kind of inspired me as well in my more recent research, very much disturbed by the narrative that has been going on when we speak about Black history, particularly the narrative that kind of comes from outside and is imposed upon us. Right. And so I just excited to get started. Again, I appreciate Sister Shanice, all the wonderful work that she is doing. I also do a little bit of activism behind the scenes here as well. And in the Bahamas, it's beginning to change now, thankfully. But we have always been kind of the quintessential example of a whitewashed kind of sugar-coated history where, we are made to thank our colonizers, and we are made to thank the British, those that enslave us, and we brag about how we had nicer slave masters. And even to this day, the most prominent statue in our country is that of Christopher Columbus. And the second most prominent statue is that of Queen Victoria, both of whom, just to be nice, can't call them anything other than genocidal maniacs, from a historical standpoint. And so that is kind of what inspired me. That is who I am. I'm a Pan-Africanist through and through. And I'm very excited again to share with Sister Shanice.
Thank you both so much for introducing yourselves. It's a privilege to have you on board. And for those in the audience, you are in for a treat. Oh, the stories that you're going to hear through this presentation today. So let's take it away. Who's going to start, Vincent or Chris?
Vincent, I don't tell them how we met. You want to do that? Begin with them. Came together.
I think I have to tell it. Because the whole story, like the Junkanoo story, started from Africa.
Right.
So was my journey.
Yeah.
I actually had a bit of information on the Junkanoo show, and I traced it to the Bahamas. That was 3 years ago, and I decided to research in it. We live in a continent where we left a lot of things of cultural and heritage significance to the on a lower level. And for me, one thing that gingered my aspiration to actually connect with the Junkanoo family, the Junkanoo story, was how the whole idea of people of African descent managed to go elsewhere in the diaspora. And they said the diasporan story, because if you look at the diaspora map, as I have it here, maybe I can share on my screen. In the world, there's about people in African diaspora. You see Brazil leading, followed by the United States, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, France, Cuba, etc., etc. And wherever these people are or found themselves, there is a story connected to it. And I'm interested in finding those stories. And I decided to make the trip to the Bahamas. And fortunately, I met Christopher in the Bahamas Museum and Monuments when I decided to go to the Pompeii Museum. It's a very good museum full of African slave monuments. Yeah, items that can be learned, that gives historical significance. And I was surprised though, because Bahamas lies miles away from Africa. And who would say that these people have such a great interest in the African heritage? But then what really made me feel was meeting Brother Christopher. He was one that took me around in the museum, gave me an in-depth historic orientation of slavery, African history. And it was very lovely to learn that Brother Christopher has written a book on Junkanoo. So I met him. He said, "Oh, do you know Junkanoo?" I said, "That's the most reason why I came here. I came here for the Junkanoo celebration. But I don't know much though." Okay. So I became a messenger of Black history. So what I had to do was come back home, do my research, right? And based on the information that I got from Chris, I think I got lines to research on, and led me back straight to Princess Town, or Pokesu, the Mecca of Black history, or the Mecca of African in the diaspora history. And I thank God for making me meet Christopher at that point in time, because earlier on we had written projects for the Ghana Year of Return initiative, and we wanted to tour the Caribbean, United States, and Canada to sensitize people of African descent to come home, invest, and also immerse themselves in the cultural heritage of Africa. And we got everything underway, but we couldn't get funding, so we had to put the project on hold. So me getting the chance to go to Bahamas to meet Christopher wasn't anything, just coincidence, but I think the whole spirits of Africa planned it. God planned it. And it was lovely. We did meet at that point.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So can I just get right into it, or? All right. So essentially, we have this parade called Junkanoo in the Bahamas. You know, it's an African celebration. And as I alluded to earlier, you know, we are not really in the Bahamas known so much for showing so much African pride. You know, we have a reputation for being some of the more conservative-minded people in the Bahamas, you know, and you could tell by many ways, not only the statues that stand in our country, you know, the colors of our flags, the policies that we have. And one of the things that makes me hang my head in shame the most would actually be our Haitian xenophobia that actually exists in the Bahamas, that goes all the way back to the days of the Haitian Revolution, right? Now, in the Bahamas, however, we have this parade, as I mentioned, called Junkanoo. And anybody who looks at this parade, you could tell that it's distinctly African. You know, we have goatskin drums, tom-tom drums, something called the Gombe drum that's derived from the word djembe, from the Mende people of most, you know, present-day Mali and Senegal as well. And we've always had all of these different versions of the story of how the origins of this parade. And most of the origin stories of this parade that we received in high school, that we received in primary school, and even that was floating around in the air, all of them had to do with giving praises to our almighty, benevolent slave masters over there in Britain. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, right? However, one of the major stories that we were told, the one that I learned, was that Junkanoo, the guy who was the namesake of the parade that we have called Junkanoo, he was some slave that came over to the Bahamas. And he actually petitioned to our slave masters in the Bahamas. And in their, mercy, they gave us a day off every year so that we could celebrate this parade that the British called Junkanoo, right? Another version of the story was that he wasn't a slave, but he was a slave trader from Africa, and that his name got attached to it somehow. And then you have another version that said that, these people were just on the plantations and they actually mimicked their slave masters, because even to this day, you see many of the Junkanoo commemorations from all around the diaspora. So in Belize, it's a play. In Guyana, it's a kind of parade. In Suriname, it's also a sort of parade or a festival, if you will. Trinidad, and even in Barbados, they have a festival called Crop Over that's actually connected to, the harvest time. And that is also connected to the Kundum festivals of Southwest Ghana, which is also the origin, if you had to say which festival our Bahamian Junkanoo came from. Jamaican Junkanoo, as I should have mentioned, also comes from. It would be this Kundum festival or any of the other festivals that existed in southern and western Ghana, present day Ghana, I should say, since that time. Okay. And so this parade, when you look at it, we beat the drums, the way we dance, the way we move. And it was actually over time evolved to fit this kind of outlook that we have on ourselves and the world. You see, in the Bahamas, our number one industry is tourism. And so that exacerbated the whitewashing that came from Britain with this whole man and the story of Junkanoo and the origin of Junkanoo. So essentially, we were left thanking the British for Junkanoo. And when I began to find out and do research on this man, Junkanoo, the namesake of Junkanoo in Jamaica, the Junkanoo in Belize, I began to discover that there was something fishy here. And I also thought to myself, well, why is it that we had, yes, and they celebrate Junkanoo in North Carolina as well. And to add to that, as a matter of fact, I'm sure, Miss Jenkins, you're familiar with the Gullah and the Geechee people. And I'm sure my dialect may be familiar to anybody who is from the United States seaboard. I meet people from there and they say, you sound just like my grandfather. And that's because, sorry to divert a bit, but that's because after the American Revolution, the vast majority of people of African descent that came to the Bahamas were actually the enslaved people who belonged to those who wanted to remain under British rule. And the Bahamas' population increased almost fivefold over the period of about 8 years from all of these migrations that came over. And of course, many of us came mostly from the Carolinas, Virginia, northern Florida, eastern Florida at the time, I should say, and all of this, of course, is why we share so many linguistics. And all throughout the Carolinas, just like in West Africa, they're huge on rice. In the Bahamas, we eat rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I just thought I should add that there, just to show another way that we're connected. And so it's no surprise at all that the Carolinas also had Junkanoo. And I have this in my book. My book is due to be published either at the end of this year, beginning of next year. They're upon making this trip that was organized by Brother Vincent. I had a lot to add in there as well. Finding out a lot more through the oral history as well. Now, this man, Junkanoo, to go back to him, his real name was Junkonoo. I had to learn how to say his name because I have this English colonial tongue in my head, but in the Twi language, it's Junkonoo. And you could also almost hear how Junkanoo came from it. His fate, he was never enslaved. And I kind of skipping over, but I'll tell you his story. He was never enslaved, but his fate, actually, he was taken away. And I don't know if we want to say he fled or if he was rescued, but he was taken to Kumasi. And there's a place that I actually learned from Brother Vincent called Kwadaso. That means calabash. And they said that he had a calabash on one of his gold coins, right? And so this man, Junkanoo, was a real person. He was no mythical character. You understand? And you have to think to yourself, why is it this was a man that lived at the same time as the late great Osway Tutu, the founder of the Shanti Empire? Why is it that we are praising this man, Junkonoo, and not a man like Osway Tutu? You understand? And all of these things made me wonder and galvanized me to do more research on this man. And I always knew deep within myself there had to have been something special about him. for us to have his name to have made it over here, right? And it's important to know before I get into it that the parade did not originate as a celebration of Junkanoo. It was something that Africans already did centuries before Junkanoo was even born. Okay, and after Junkanoo was born and he did all of these feats that I'm going to get into, his name was then brought over. And so, for example, you even have a man named William Answer, right? He was actually a Fante prince. And at this time, of course, we know that the Ashanti and the Fante are very closely connected. But at this time, the European presence had exacerbated many of the conflicts that had existed between the two of them. And so the Fante at this time in the mid-1700s would have been considered the quote-unquote enemy of the Ashanti. And even William Answer, who was a Fante prince, who was taken into slavery probably a few decades after Junkanoo had died, even he had only good things to say about him. And when he actually experienced it, he's like, oh man, maybe we should have, his sentiment was, maybe we should have aligned ourselves more with people like Junkanoo, and so you have this man who would have had every reason to hate him. He actually claimed that he was enslaved, or not enslaved, I should rephrase that he was captured by Ashanti warriors and then taken into enslavement. And so he would have had every reason to have, a good kind of distaste towards them. And even though Junkanoo was a hunter, he was very closely connected as an ally to the Ashanti people, and that is why they accepted him as refuge in Kwadaso, right outside Kumasi. Okay, now there's a lot of myth behind them. Before I get into the facts, Kwadaso, and Vincent, you can step in at any time to correct me. It loosely translates as calabash. As we know, calabash has like a handle and it's a big scoop. And so on his gold coins, it is said that he actually had a calabash on the gold coin. And there's another kind of mythos behind him saying that this man was so wealthy that somebody came to borrow anything from him, he would take his calabash, scoop up any amount of gold almost indiscriminately. The same similar stories that you hear about people like Mansa Musa, and he would give it to these people. And of course, as I started to do more research, I found mostly Europeans actually who would, brand him a slave trader. Because, of course, the narrative is wealthy African chiefs of the 18th century, they must have been slave traders. You understand? And then I went and I did some research on the empirical data. I actually started to research the slave ships that left from present-day Princestown, which was known as Pocasoo at the time, and in the entire area. And what I found was while Junkanoo was present in present-day Pocasoo, there wasn't a single slave ship that actually left from there. As a matter of fact, the slave trading of the British and the Dutch in that entire region of Southwest Ghana took a significant plummet. You understand? And then the whole picture started to come together. And then as I touched on in the beginning with the kind of British appropriation of this story, Junkanoo became Junkanoo. And then Junkanoo became just some trivial, don't say trivial, but one that's a lot less meaningful. It took away the revolutionary spirit, because the origin of Junkanoo is actually in celebration of people that fought against the British and the Dutch slave trade. And of course, the narrative that we always receive is that Africans are compliant in every single facet of their genocide. Whether we're talking about the modern time where we have young black men, shooting up each other in the quote-unquote ghetto, you understand? Or whether we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, where they blanket all of us just as black people, forgetting that Africa is in fact even more diverse than Western Europe. And then they say, oh, well, look at these black people enslaving each other. Look at these Africans enslaving each other. And then when we look at events that are much closer to the modern time, somehow we don't use these same 21st century erroneous labels. So in World War II, we don't say, well, when Germany invaded France, we don't say, well, look at these white people fighting against each other. Look at these Europeans going up against each other. You understand? And so, sorry if I'm going too long. Y'all feel free to interject or ask a question at any point. But I'm just trying to get as much information on our research out there as we can. Now, why exactly was Junkanoo commemorated so much? Why did all Africans from this region seem to love him so much? Obviously, he fought against the British and the Dutch slave trade. Many of us were enslaved in these British and Dutch colonies. And people have to remember that the Dutch at one point in time had many massive colonies in the Western Hemisphere, like Guyana, you know, and that's why they have that separation, French Guyana, Suriname, which was the Dutch conclave of the Guyanas that they were able to hold. And then, of course, you can see the connection of why this Junkanoo story, this Junkanoo story, is also popular and celebrated in Suriname as well. You understand? And so just to touch on some of the things that he did. He is erroneously referred to as a Prussian prince. I strongly disagree with that. What we have to remember is when we talking about genocide and the transatlantic slave trade, there's an expression that we use here in the Bahamas. I know that it's popular in Jamaica and it's also popular in the United States. And we call it crab in a barrel syndrome or crab in a bucket syndrome. You know, it's the notion that all of these crabs are in this bucket, and we as Black people, we always pull each other down. We always pulling each other down. But the key thing that we forget in that is that crabs do not live in buckets. Crabs do not live in barrels. And when you place these crabs in these barrels, in these buckets, they are placed in this kind of sense of acute survival mode. Now, of course, I'm not trying to justify or excuse that Black crab pulling down his fellow Black crab, metaphorically speaking. But what I'm saying is we have to understand the state of mind that we were in, because we end up getting into these arguments where we literally pointing our fingers at each other when the major beneficiaries of the Ma'afa in the past and the ongoing Ma'afa of today, which is the Western world, to put it bluntly, you know, they kind of just go by unscathed without having any accountability, and we are pointing fingers at, oh well, this tribe did this, you know. And that's why even I'm bothered by when I see people, and I wouldn't want to say bothered is the correct word, but I have to raise an eyebrow because I see the narrative, and it's all over the internet, where you have these people apologizing for the roles that their great-great-grandfather may have played or great-great-grandmother may have played. There's one in particular, I'm not going to get too much because I don't want to try to see if I'm attacking anybody personally, right? But there was one from the region of Mccrory Island off the coast of Senegal, right? And the person was like, yeah, well, you know, my great-great-grandfather, you know, used to sell slaves and they made so much money from Mccrory Island in Senegal. And this fella, you know, of course, I'm not trying to portray a negative poverty image of Africa as a whole, but in the place where he was living was extremely underdeveloped. And this fellow was wearing a shirt with holes in it, you know, and you could see that he was very impoverished. And I was like, I wonder if we were to trace the slave traders from Europe, if we were to trace their descendants, how they live in, you know. And this is some of the things that I explore in my book as well, you know. And so Junkanoo, as you can see why he's so important, because it really goes against this narrative, you know, this narrative of us enslaving ourselves and being compliant in our own Ma'afa, right? So one of the feats that Junkanoo did actually was in 1712 at a battle known as the Battle of Fort Meadowcross. And that was a British stronghold at the time. And in the Battle of Fort Meadowcross, he actually waited until Christmas Day. This was a military strategy. I just seeing these comments coming in, so I'll actually, should I address some of those comments as well? Can I? Is that good, or should I just continue? Oh, okay, great. All right, I'll just finish this part. In the Battle of Fort Meadowcross, he actually adopted this military strategy that on Christmas Day he would choose to raid these European strongholds along the coast of present-day Ghana. Okay, and of course, if you think about it, you could see why he did that, because Christmas time is a time that they celebrate. They probably eating a little bit too much food, probably getting drunk. You understand, and all of these things. And so it was a brilliant military strategy, and he actually temporarily expelled the British from that fort. But more impressively, he actually, almost independently, for upwards of 14 years, held on to a fort known as Fort Gross Friedrichsburg, which is in Princestown, that Brother Vincent mentioned before. Okay, and so these are just one of many of the feats militarily that he actually had, and he had several victorious battles against both the British and the Dutch. When we actually visited Pocasoo several weeks ago, we actually saw the foundation of a wall that they said was probably about 50 feet high that extended from the lagoon to the ocean. And this wall was built to protect his people. And then he had mandated, he actually pretty much sanctioned by law that if you were to go out to do anything, you had to go out with 50 people to protect yourself from being enslaved from these people. You understand? And we have to now use stories like Junkanoo, and of course, Junkanoo is not the only one. You have Queen Nzinga in Angola. You have Yaya Apoko from the from the Igbo people. You understand? You have Chujo from the Dahomey people. And if you're familiar with these groups, these are the same groups that they always say, oh, well, they were big slave traders. They were big this, they were big that. But when you look at it and you get more in depth with it and you understand the level of survival mode and how mercantilism works, how capitalism works, and it has to do with human nature. You understand? It really does have to do with human nature, in my view, because when you are placed in this acute survival mode, all your sense of morality goes out of the door. Hypothetically speaking, if all of us were in studio and we see a guy dressed up like the Joker walking there and put a gun on his shoulder, we can get out of there, and one of us might push the other one over to get away, but we try to get away from that immediate and definite threat that's always there. And so afterwards, of course, I might be like, hey, Sister Shanice, why did you trip me down? But at the end of the day, I would still understand. I say, well, you probably tripped me down and pushed me in the way as an instinctive reaction to you just trying to survive and stay alive. You understand? It's almost like you putting your hand in the flame and taking it away. And so, of course, at the same time, we do have examples that we should be ashamed of. But I believe that because of this narrative, we have often blanketed too many people in the wrong category, and then it leaves us kind of looking at each other and fighting against each other. And this is why me and Brother Vincent is Christian name and Kwame is his African name. But this is why I call him Brother Kwame. But this is why me and Brother Kwame, we kind of came to these conclusions and through many discussions, and this is actually the crux of us founding the foundation that we did, because now we can see how Junkanoo is a unifying force. Now, another aspect of this, it is not only just involved in the parade, but it also involves the revolutionary African influence in the Western Hemisphere. Because, for example, when you look at Jamaican Junkanoo, and then you look at the Junkanoo from the Bahamas, it's quite distinctly different. The one in Jamaica actually is very Akan. And even the Maroon communities in Jamaica, they've retained many Akan words. And so you have areas like Achampong, you have areas like Coromantee in Jamaica. And these are also cities and villages in present-day Ghana to this day, well-known regions in Ghana. So you can see the connection. And within these Maroon communities was where Junkanoo in Jamaica kind of originated and was originally celebrated. And so because they were kind of outside the plantation, whereas the Bahamian versions of our celebrations had evolved on the plantation, you could see that drastic kind of different, and especially how they kind of were able to remain in isolation for over a century, obviously before they were militarily defeated by the British and then forced to sign these treaties, whereas essentially, well, we can just come and kill all of y'all, or y'all can help us subdue some of these slave revolts and all of that. That actually came up before, so I just wanted to address that again. But in Jamaica, it's kind of almost for a long time been reserved to these what we know today as Maroon communities, right? It was something similar in Guyana as well. Now, the reason why you have these massive differences, of course, I mentioned ours kind of evolved in the midst of that colonial community. So we had a lot less autonomy than the quote-unquote Junkanoos, as we say in the Bahamas. Junkanoos that practice in Jamaica in the past few centuries, okay? Now, the thing that puzzled me, though, because as everywhere that I found this commemoration of Junkanoo, I also found some Akan revolutionary hero. So, of course, Jamaica has the most famous ones. You have Queen Nanny, Captain Cujo, Quao, and many others. Even in Barbados, you have Bussa in Barbados. The national hero of Guyana is Kofi. Then I found Queen Brefu in the Virgin Islands. All of these people are also connected, and of course the Maroons of Suriname as well. Okay, all of these people, you can see the connection between this revolutionary spirit, and then all of these you have to understand were people who may have served under Jan Kwao, because he had a private army of 20,000 people. You understand? Now, I said to myself, well, why is it that in the Bahamas, Junkanoo is our national celebration. We have it twice a year. Everybody goes crazy over Junkanoo. I have two brothers. They dedicate their life there. They spend half the year, and we have something called shots, where it's literally like a labor of love. Men them go in there and women too, and they spend all their money. They're not paid for it or anything. They spend all their money buying all of these feathers and all of these things. And then you see Kofi is an Ashanti name. When I was actually, sorry to digress a bit, but when I was in Ghana, and I was calling the names of all of these national heroes and people over on this side, these are everyday names in Ghana. And so it was easy for them to understand that connection. You understand? Now, getting back to the Bahamas again, bringing it closer to home. So we have arguably the biggest commemoration to Jan Kwao, our national Junkanoo parade. Maybe not the biggest numerically, but definitely per capita. Every Bahamian loves Junkanoo. All of us love it. Even if we don't participate, we all have different groups that we pull for. It can be very polarizing at times, right? And so I wondered, how is it that we have this huge commemoration of Junkanoo, and yet we have Christopher Columbus, Queen Victoria, and even when we look at some of our own heroes, we have those that did revolutions on the slave plantation. But at the same time, even those are kind of fleeting, and they're not given the recognition that they should be. But how is it that we have this massive Junkanoo parade that everybody participates in, everybody's interested in, the biggest show, the greatest show of the year, every year in the Bahamas, without exception? But we don't have an African heroes. And then I started to do some research, and I found a simple mistranslation that was a footnote in our historical books. And there was this man named Quarino, and they spelled it with an R, Quarino. And I started to read deeper into him. He actually arrived on a slave ship that belonged to the first royal governor of the Bahamas. This first royal governor of the Bahamas, for those who know anything about the ages of piracy, if you watch the Black Sails show on Netflix, is a man named Woodes Rogers, and he's the guy that we were taught in high school that we must thank, because he came to the Bahamas and he expelled all the pirates and he put piracy to an end. But in reality, his motto was expel piracy, restore commerce. That commerce was slavery. And one of the major things that he did along with his son was import slaves into the Bahamas. And Quarino was actually a mistranslation because of the handwriting, and his real name was actually Kwamino. And as soon as I actually saw this document myself, and I spotted that mistranslation, and I said, Kwamino, I was like, this is him right here. I was like, this is the Khan revolutionary hero. In 1734.
Chris, let me correct you one here. The name is Kwamina.
Sorry.
Kwamina,
right.
And there's Saturday born.
Saturday born. There you go.
Yeah, Saturday born. And I got a new feed from one of our viewers saying, why is only Junkanoo Jan Kwao, the one to be celebrated with it?
Yeah.
And it's something that we learning. We putting the puzzles together.
Yeah.
And I might borrow this word, inheritage.
Yeah.
Inheriting our heritage. Inheritage.
That's
and is a process we're going through. There's a work for us for we doing research in tourism and anthropology in all these areas, not to stop at where people have researched to, but we based on continual consciousness, learning, getting answers, because wherever the point where they research to, they were not equipped with scientific means. Even though they had a degree of precision, we still have work to do as modern day researchers. Looking at it from a historic perspective, the celebration should have started at the enclave of Hunter, where the Princess Town started.
Right.
And we're talking about the 1700s. And 1700s, Junkanoo wasn't that much popular. I don't know, but he was not at his peak.
Right.
And how come he was this thing was named after him? And we trace the direction to Winneba, where they celebrate the Masquerade Festival, and it started in 1726. Okay, so reading between the lines.
1926.
No,
1926.
no, it's 1726,
Oh, it's right.
1926. Sorry,
Yeah.
1926. Sorry,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
looking at it from that interval, 1700 and to 1900, when it has been documented that Bahamas started this celebration.
Right.
What would have gone wrong in the chain?
Yeah.
Was it that a piece of history was missed along the line, or people did not document that section of history?
Right.
Okay, and we are still researching how the celebration becomes common among the Winneba people and also among the Ahante people and part of the Ashanti people. So we're still in the process of research. And
Yeah.
every time you talk to a researcher, a historical researcher, they still bring up something new. We're still researching our heritage and we haven't finished yet.
Yes.
And that's the most reason why we always get together and we learn things new. And I believe that if Junkanoo celebration had been there already, it must have spread across the coast of Ghana because of similarities in beliefs.
Right.
Because the celebration in Winneba, it's quite the same as the one done in the Bahamas.
Yep.
And if you look at it, trace a bit like the one in Belize, you know. But in the Bahamas now, it's quite fashionable. They added a lot of taste to it. You see very big costumes, bigger drums, lively, party-like, and it's everyday people keep on adding a bit to it. And nobody knows the original. Nobody else knows everything, but we adding a piece to our culture every time,
Right.
and it's wonderful.
So I saw a comment from Super Block. I don't know if you could think of, but I just wanted to actually explain something because he actually raised a good point there. When we talk about Jan Kwao and his connection to Junkanoo, I don't know if you would. Yeah, there you go. I ain't gonna do the first sentence, but I'm afraid he has focused too much on the Khan people. There's way more to it than that. So first of all, remember what we're talking about here is the origin and why his name was attached to it. Who was he? Why was his name attached to it? And how did it spread? As I don't know if they didn't come in the beginning of the show, and maybe it's my fault for not elaborating on it enough, but I mentioned before, we have names of drums like the Gombe drum, and that is not of a Khan origin. That is actually of Mende origin or Mandingo origin or Mandinka, but it comes from the Mende speaking people. You have the Tum Tum that comes from the Wolof people of Senegal that we use in our Junkanoo. And as a matter of fact, you see, what happened was, especially in the Bahamas, for a long time, the only people of African descent, or far more than 90%, were Akan. The most people that came to the Bahamas were actually Yoruba and Igbo, but they had already met and established African culture in the Bahamas. And so, of course, it might be someone who's familiar with the Junkanoo parades. And when you look at the Bahamian one, you can see all sorts of different cultural African influences. But my thesis is not in the argument of the evolution of the parade and how it came to be today. The argument of my thesis is the reason why the parade is based and the namesake of this man has happened was because of the great feats that he'd accomplished, that it had almost made him into a mythical character into the minds of consciousness of not only Akan people, but also the Fante people and people from all over that region, right? And Vincent, again, raised some of the great questions that we asking. How is it that it kind of pops up here in Winneba, and then it almost evolved independently for a century, and it looks almost exactly the same as the one that we practice in the Bahamas, right? And the years and the time that it also pops up in Winneba is also cause you to raise an eyebrow because you're familiar with African history. This was actually during the time where Europe had actually almost completely colonized Africa, with the exception of Liberia and Ethiopia and a few small conclaves there. And so we've done quite a bit of extensive research on this, particularly me, myself. There are other people working on projects on the evolution of Junkanoo, but we're focusing on the Akan influence in Junkanoo. You understand who he was? He was an Akan man, and so it may seem that we are only focusing on one group. And then remember, of course, within the Akan people, saying Akan is almost like saying black. There are so many different groups and even different languages, and I'm sure Brother Vincent could elaborate on that. But Akan in itself is an extremely broad term, so you can't say that we're narrowing down this parade. And as Brother Kwame also mentioned, this is an ongoing process. We might find something tomorrow, that says something different, right?
Yeah, the Akan community in Ghana, such a big community,
Right.
and we say Akan that covers all the area of Akan speaking, and there are some areas of mixed Akan who are still considered Akans. So, example, in Zemes have their own dialect, but their dialect looks quite similar, like the Akan, the tree, few words mixing up, and they are considered Akans. We have the Gonjas, in technicality, Akans, because during the settlement line, a couple of them settled there before they moved down south. Okay, and historically, the Akans occupy a greater percentage of the Ghanaian landmass and language map and all. But the celebration is a whole set for the whole Africa, because we trace our line from the Egyptian civilization, and most of the people moved down to West Southern Africa and other places. And I believe that people were moving with their languages, and as they get to new places, they mix them a bit based on if they encountered an existing group, and so I believe that this is not a static something; it's evolving process. And we say Junkanoo not only about the Akan people; it's a celebration of a whole heritage of Africanism.
Yeah, and one of our running themes is Junkanoo as the unifying force. That is the running theme of our foundation right now. So again, sorry if we came off like we being Akan centric, but
That's
it's
okay.
explorer.
Can broaden it as we go. As has already been said, this is work in progress, and there could be new information that becomes available even tomorrow that gives us a slightly different perspective. And I want to rise you up, Brother Chris and Brother Kwame Vincent, for the works that you're doing, the research that you're doing to try and uncover some of our history, because as we know, they've done an excellent job at actually covering up our history. They've changed the names, changed the places, and we're having to try and put this really complex jigsaw puzzle back together again so that we can begin to uncover our story. And so for everybody that's involved in doing that work, I know only too well how tedious and how much reading and how much work actually goes into uncovering our history. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for the great works that you're doing there and for all of what you're sharing. Let's go around the panel and begin a little bit of a discussion now on these really interesting findings. First of all, let's bring in Dr. Abu. Rise up, Dr. Abu. You've heard the story of Junkanoo, and you may have seen some of the comments in the chat. You might want to pick up on some comments. Let's go over to Dr. Abu.
Vudum family.
Vudum.
You know, when we research these epics, you know, our journey, we must not look at them in an entertainment form. We must look upon them in a military strategy.
Exactly.
Because within the Junkonoo celebration, there's a lot of our people will move from one location to the next.
Yep.
You understand?
Yep.
It's just like today, oh, some of us celebrate Carnival. Carnival never start that way.
Right.
Carnival start by burning down the KNPs, burning down big house and all of them things. But what them have to do over the years is bring you down to an entertainment mood that you lost the fire and all of them things. For instance, European never loved Muhammad Ali until he can sting like a bee and float like a butterfly. You must understand that them always said a good nigger is a dead nigger. So all of these, you said Junkonoo is coming from a military science.
Yes, sir. It's interesting that
these things are taken from a military science. You understand? You know, it just like the brother from the sister them from St. Vincent was talking about the Kalinga people. It's part of the old fire, because the Bahamas was also a training ground for a lot of the revolutionists. So they learn a lot of camouflage tactics and all of them things. And they remember their African celebration, and they take that celebration into a military form, because there was no thing to celebrate in the Caribbean. It's all about surviving and escape and all of these things. So when I research myself, not only in book, because sometimes you have to really go deep, and ask the ancestor them to show you different from the narrative of the European. And that is what they're showing me. Guerrilla warfare in many tactics. We may call it entertainment, but they see it as warfare, So give thanks to, Brother Chris and Brother Vincent, see it for sharing those things, because it's we have to research our own thing. You understand?
Yes, sir.
The kidnapper will never tell us our true story.
Never.
We have to research it and find it ourselves. So give thanks, family. Respect all the time.
Dr. Abu, thank you so much for that. Hold on, Chris. We will be coming back to you.
Okay, no problem.
Let's bring in Sister Sheila. I'm liking the new hairstyle. Woo! Hey.
Thank you.
There's been a bit of a conversation going on in the chat as well, Sister Sheila. They've been wondering whether you're drinking Kenyan coffee or Blue Mountain coffee from Jamaica. And I think someone said, no, if it's Blue Mountain coffee from Jamaica, you've been laughing because you have ganja and all kind of thing. So you want to share what coffee you're drinking with the chat?
I am actually drinking CMOS, Irish.
I
am actually drinking CMOS. I'm a herbalist, so I stay away from caffeine and I drink herbs. So this is CMOS.
They were all wrong then.
They were all very wrong. Thank you. I give thanks to Brother Chris and Brother Vincent, and I have a message for you. When I ran a life coaching school. And when I was starting this school, one message that I was given by one of my teachers, he told me that when you are starting something, and it is something to do with our people, don't listen to constructive criticism. Just start. And as you start, focus on what you want. Focus on the positives. Don't listen to anyone that comes in the name of constructive criticism, because what they're coming to tell you something negative. They're coming to tell you to strive for perfection. They're coming to tell you to wait for this and for that and for this before you start off. So he said, just start and keep on going. You'll make the changes as you go along. You learn as you go along. And when you are in cruising stage, when you are fully stable, when you're at that stage,
then you can start listening to the constructive criticism, because it is not going to dent you. You're already up there. But at the takeoff, just the same way when an aeroplane is taking off, that's the most crucial time, and that's the most dangerous time. So just as you start this, as you continue with this research, and you're always finding new things, this is the time you just focus on what it is you want to achieve. There is no room for negativity. There is no room for murmuring voices, because most of the murmurs are going to come from our own people, who are going to come with the distractions and tell you, oh, no, you've got this wrong, and go this way, and go that way, and go this way. Then by the end of it all, you just sit there overwhelmed. So just start. And even if you get things wrong in the process, there are many rights that you would have got, and those wrongs will be rectified as you go along, and someone else will come and pick up as you go along. Yes. You mentioned a lot of names, Brother Chris, when you were talking about a lot of our heroes here and there, here and there. We are the people that are here now in 2021. 1,000 years from now, it is our names that will be mentioned. It is us who would have now joined in the narrative of the others that you've mentioned, the Junkonoo and all that. It is our names that will be there. Dr. Abu's name will be there. Sister Shani's name will be there. Brother Chris' name will be there. Brother Vincent's name will be there. And of course, my name will be there. So it is important. It is important to have these stories, because these stories is not just about the past. These stories is about our present as well. We are weaving that narrative. We are adding into that narrative. So at one time, it will be someone researching and saying, no, it was the Sister Shani show of Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday 15th. That one, yes. Oh, they said this and they said that, because our history, our story is still being convoluted and corrupted. The enemy has not ceased being the enemy. And the enemy is not happy to see that we are going back to what in Ghana they call Sankofa, to go back to get what you left. So we are doing that now. And as we're going back to get what we left, we are also continuing with building this. So the enemy does not want that, because the enemy does not want to be unmasked. So it's not only the stories of the past they are corrupting. It is also these stories of the present that they are also corrupting.
Yeah.
So we have to be very, very mindful that as we go into the past, we are also building the present. So we also need to secure this present by shows like this, whereby we are reaching all the people. The more collaborators we have who are witnessing this, is the more stories we'll have in the future. When people are looking for the stories, they'll not be cold tracks. There'll be so many people that will say, oh yeah, I even have the recording. Oh yes, and I have this and I have that, So you are doing good work, my brothers. I am here to give you that hope and tell you it is wonderful. I've known a lot from what you're saying today. And your work is not in vain. Your work is awakening us.
Thank you.
There is no room for constructive criticism. I have seen the flyer. I have seen when the festival is, and I will try my best to make sure that I am in that festival.
Thank you.
I give thanks.
Yes.
Wonderful input there from both Dr. Abu and Sister Sheila, who's drinking her sea moss. Rise up. I know only too well the amount of work that's involved, because our history is literally buried. It's like, and it's like it's been cemented over as well. And piled on top of, our stories is just a huge amount of misinformation, disinformation, and a lot of confusion. And so, those historians of ours have certainly got their work cut out. So well done to you for the works in progress. Let me allow you to come back, Brother Chris, and respond to some of the comments that have been made so far.
Dr. Abu, have you secretly been doing research on Junkanoo and the evolution in the Bahamas? Because you hit the nail right on the head. I actually got goosebumps when you said it. Now, Junkanoo was not always a parade in the Bahamas, just as Carnival was not always a celebration. My mother's actually from Trinidad, so I'm a bit familiar with Carnival and the celebration. And when you look at, there's a movie, an old James Bond movie called Thunderball. It was filmed in, I believe, the 1956, but sometime around there. And in that movie, James Bond is running through the crowd, and it's actually during our Junkanoo celebration. And it's not a parade. What you see is, you see two groups competing against each other. And in my research, what I've found is the origin of this celebration in secret was actually because, remember, the slave masters in their paternalistic outlook would be like, oh, look at our slaves, they're mimicking us, they're trying to be right. But what it really was, we were dressing up like them and we were reenacting these battles that Junkanoo had done. And this is, in my theory, why it became Junkanoo. Then the colonizer heard us saying it, and of course, you know, even in our English dialects infused with African language that we speak now, they can't speak the way we speak. You understand? And so it's very interesting that you mentioned that, and that it definitely is a warrior spirit. And furthermore, when you look, we call it rushing. So when you participate in the parade, we call it rushing. We don't be there. I mean, we smile and we have fun, but generally speaking, we don't be there smiling and doing all this jovial movements. The chant that we chant is warriors, warriors. People walking around looking mad, you huffing and puffing. That is how you rush. It's particularly the men. You ball your fists, you huff and you puff, you move around, you get the group marshal in your face shouting at you, telling you break up that costume and all of these things, you know. And so the essence of that could never truly be lost. So I found it quite powerful that you would mention that. And it's amazing how all of these celebrations are so interconnected. And again, you know, it doesn't, you can never say that it specifically belongs to one group, specifically when you know how our history works, you know, and even since the beginning, we were being intertwined and mixed. And so most of us now who live in the Western Hemisphere, at least, are descended from those who were brutally enslaved in the West. We can't even make a claim to be of one African ethnicity or of one African group, of one African linguistic group even, you understand? And because we're so mixed up. And it's amazing how you made those parallels with Carnival, because when we turned our Junkanoo in a parade, it was done in tandem with tourism becoming our #1 industry. And essentially, and it was true in the 1950s, of course, but essentially the gist was, well, you know, we can't have all these white people coming there to visit us and we talking about this revolution and they doing this. So over time, it became a competition and then it became entertainment. And yet the essence of it is still there. And as you could see on the screen there, this is one of the graphics that's going to be in my book. And this shows you the revolutionary connections between the Western Hemisphere, with more specifically, and again, Akan is a wide group. This includes Ahanta and Zima, Ashanti, all of the other groups that Brother Vincent mentioned, right? And there you can see Bahamas in 1734. That is Kwamina, right, big brother? Kwamina. There we go, Kwamina.
Right, correct.
And of course, we know that he is from the same region. You understand? And what I found so interesting, and now this is an extreme long shot. And boy, but if this is the case, it would be absolutely amazing. But in a sense, it would make sense because the parade and the commemoration is so powerful and so heavily celebrated in the Bahamas. Junkanoo's right-hand man, Junkanoo's right-hand man, was a man by the name of Kwamina Apri. Kwamina Apri. And so this is a whole another line that you know, another door that's opened up for research for us. You understand? And then it's very exciting stuff. And of course, big sister Sheila's comments as well. You know, I take that with much gratitude. I'm the type of guy, you know, anybody who knows anything about West African spirituality, particularly the Yoruba philosophy, and they know about Shango, you know, I'm the type of guy, you know, someone say something wrong or something I don't agree with, I have to address it. You understand what I'm saying? But I guess that's just me. You know, that's the Shango energy in me. You know, he's the Risha of justice, of fire, you know, lightning and all of these things. And he is known to be very outspoken as well, right? But I really appreciate that advice. It's the same advice that I'm given by my father as well. I don't even know if it was specifically for me or if it was just general, but it was almost like you knew me and you said that specifically for me. But I take that advice very well. And, you know, unfortunately, in the beginning, it was very tough as a Pan-Africanist in the Bahamas, even in what I'm doing. But it's always great to get outside kind of this fishbowl that I kind of live in at times. You know, and to just experience like-minded people, especially people as learned as the panel that I have the pleasure of presenting to today. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well done to you for the great works. And, you know, the revolutionary side of our story often gets buried as well, doesn't it? They like to show the images of us being whipped and the atrocities and the abuse and the violence that was meted out on us. But when it's in reverse, because those revolts weren't pretty, you know, those revolts would have had to have been, you know, as brutal as we were getting, or even more so to win. And then, you know, immediately after those revolts, I'm sure they would have tried to mete out on those that survived it, you know, some wickedness again to try and stop people from revolting again. But nevertheless, what we're seeing in that little list there were 10 revolts and uprisings. So, you know, there were revolts after revolts after revolts. Our people were fighting and fighting against our enslavement and our captivity. And we can see, you know, that some of these fights actually went on for decades as well. You know, they weren't just, it wasn't just a one-off battle. It was a war that our people had been waging against them. And it's really interesting that, because, you know, these would have been Africans who had not long been taken out of Africa. And even though, you know, they would have been numerous from different clans, some may not have been able to communicate with each other because they would have been, you know, speaking different languages. Because we do know, if you follow the voyage, the ships of the voyages, some of them would stop at different parts along the West African coast and pick up, you know, different groups of Africans along the way. They had people who were going into the interior and bringing Africans to the coast as well. So there would have been a whole mishmash, you know, of Africans from a range of different tribes or cultures, or however we want to describe them, all coming together. But clearly from these revolts, there was one thing that they all had agreed on, you know, and that is that they were not going to tolerate the circumstances that they were living in. And so we had a fighting spirit, a real fighting spirit. And that was before, obviously, Christianity or any other religion was used to subdue us, you know, because remember, once Christianity was introduced, our people were taught to do what? Turn the other cheek. It wasn't about fighting anymore. You know, it took that fighting spirit out of our people. So suddenly we were no longer the rebellious Africans, the fighting Africans that we were, you know, during the early days of our captivity. But we became, you know, once they discovered how they could use and abuse religion to subdue us, because, you know, it basically took away our will, you know, to fight. Dr. Abu, you wanted to jump in?
That's why they're speaking.
I'll bring you in next, Brother Vincent.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Dr. Abu,
I think.
Sorry. Dr. Abu, you
one Brother Vincent. Go on.
Oh,
okay.
I think what Sister Shanice is saying is perfectly true. And we have it documented in our proverbs, in our adages. There's one Akan adage that says, if you chase a coward, you meet his brevity. And I think this whole thing revolts is sum up in it, because they really learned that if they were being subjected to cruelty and along the line inhumane conditions, the only way to rise up is to resist and then bring the braveness in them. And I believe that's what really happened, because you can't take them forever, and whatever they're going through or whatever you made them go through was to a point, and that point beyond it, there should be resistance, because they also have like feelings like they do. And I think that brought the whole stories of revolts around like that, because the whole moral issue of slavery and all that, if it had been now, we would have categorized it a different way. But no one knows, given the benefit of the doubt, that maybe people didn't have enough information, or people had misplaced priority, or people had motions and other things differently. But I think now is for us to rise up as descendants of African race, and then be together, learn, okay? No matter where the celebration is, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Bahamas, in whatever, the whole storyline is the history behind it. And what is the history? The history is linked to our heroes, not only one hero. Even though it's named after one hero, we have other heroes that we need to celebrate. And then if we come straight deep down to learn our history, it's best for us. Christopher told me that he teaches African heritage to school kids, and sometimes he make them compare costumes from Africa and the Bahamas. They usually get confused because the colors are the same, the makes are the same, and it's all good. And I think we are one people, and it's something that run through us to rise up and uphold modern, I say modern resistance, because we're still being changed in the mind, still being changed in the mind. We can liberate our mental and ideologies. I think we'd be best. Yeah.
Absolutely. That fire that we clearly had at one time has been, extinguished. But, there's still that spark there in some of us. And if we can, add some fuel, then maybe that will help to propel us, to the next stage of our upliftment and advancement of the people. Okay, Sister Sheila, did you want to jump in here and contribute to the discussion?
Yes, I will jump in and contribute to the discussion. It is a good thing that we are narrating our own story. And one thing that we face when we start talking our own story is sometimes that hesitation from our people who say it was a long time ago. They say it's a long time ago. Why are you bothering? Well, let's just accept and we move on. And sometimes what we have to do, we sometimes have to learn from the enemy. Because what I find is that they do not forget. Just this week, I was going for a walk somewhere, and I came across this memorial of something to do with, it wasn't even World War I. It was something to do about something called the War of the Roses. And this is a war that took around 32 years, happened, I think, 1455 or long time, like 1455 or something. It's very heavy. In the British history, to change the course of their history. It's the War of the Roses. It's two families that were fighting, for the Lancaster and York, yes. So they have this memorial. So it ended up, all the male lines of the family were killed, both two houses. So one house, their emblem was a red rose. Another house, their emblem was a white rose. So they were fighting. The way they have the male heir is the one that becomes king. So the king of this house. So it was two families fighting. And they ended up killing all the male lines of that family. And another line came and took over. And that line is where the present queen is descended from. So anyway, all these people are fighting. Now, this war was in 1455. Long time ago. In September 2021, they were commemorating it. And there is this big memorial. And for the people, they were saying the people that lost their lives. Oh, Sister Shanice has disappeared. We'll continue. The people that had lost their lives, they were being commemorated. And young children, as young as 10, were there being told about this War of the Roses. So I stood nearby so that I could also hear about it. And they were very thorough. That's why I know about the 1455. And it took 35 years, 32 years. They really went into detail about educating these children in September 2021 about some war that happened in 1455. About these two people and how the war lasted for so long, and how the area that I was in was affected by this war, and how it has influenced how the monarchy has come to be today, and how it has influenced how Britain has come to be. So you see what they are teaching these children. They're giving them a background. They're giving them a foundation. They're giving them their history, their ancestry. Now these children end up knowing their roots. Then there's us, whose story has been thrown about, cast, gone literally everywhere. And then we have our own people that, say that, what, it is doing us a disservice, not knowing where we came from or what happened to us. It is doing us a great disservice. Like, for starters, what Brother Chris has been saying, we are a united people. Just following these storylines show that we are one people, that the people in Bahamas and the people in Ghana are the same people. When you look at this history of Junkanoo, you find they are the same people. So that is the importance of history, when you know that your people are everywhere. And I finished by giving this story. Sister Shanice, you said that yesterday there was a show and Bishop Maponga was there. Now, I was in WhatsApp another time, and someone came and they liked my father's name. My father's name is Maonga, which is also Maponga, which is also Mabonga, which is also Mabonga. For us, the names, the B and P, they all sounded the same. So someone said, oh, that name sounds like one of the names we have in Zimbabwe. And I thought, no, it's a Kenyan name. And they said, no, give us that name and we trace your history for you. So there was someone there that could trace history. And they traced the history and found that my father's people were the same people in South Africa. They were the Shonas, the same people in Zimbabwe, and the same people that came from Congo. These are the same people using just my name, using my surname, my dad's people. Now, I would have thought, so meaning that the Mapongas, like Bishop Maponga, is in South Africa, and he came from Zimbabwe. So that surname of his and my surname, they are all one people. Now, if you told me that my people are in these other places, I would say, no, I don't have anything to do with Zimbabweans. Oh, South Africa's nothing to do with me. And then I find these are my father's people. These are my father's people. So it is very important for us to have this history. And that is why we should always go back and learn our history. And now, as we continue, also document this history that we have right now, that we are building as we go, because we never finish the story. We are always adding to it. And because of that, we should always, when we have our people that have tasked themselves to go and research on our story and share it with us, those are our people that need a lot of commendation. Those are the people that we need to hold up. And when we have festivals like this that celebrate us and connect us to our past, these are the festivals that we need to go to. But you'll find that we sometimes run to festivals that have nothing to do with us. Yeah. Those are the places we run. And the festivals that have everything to do with us, we kind of have to beg people to come to attend them. And it all comes down to the ignorance of not knowing how important it is for us to learn our story. So my message to all of us here, listening and watching, there is nothing like accept and move on, that is in the past. No. We need to know our background. We need to know what has happened in the past, because what has happened there informs us where we are now and informs us where we are going. I give thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sister Sheila. And, I just want to rise up Nubian Jack at this time here in the UKKK that is doing a brilliant job trying to identify, places of historical significance here, where our people were, what they contributed and what they did. And he's putting blue plaques, around the place and monuments as well. To tell our story. And you've just reinforced there, really, Sister Sheila, the importance of that work, especially for our children and children's children. Just also to mention, picking up on something Sister Sheila said earlier, please do download these videos and share. We want there to be this historical record of the conversations and the discussions that we were having in 2021. It was mentioned in the chat that, we have to be mindful that this isn't our platform. And at some point, they may go along and do a cleanup and just get rid of all of these discussions. So please do download them and share. If each person was to bring someone along next strong, obviously we would have double the number of people in the house. This is a platform that we're using to reach our people, to educate ourselves. We can't expect the mainstream Eurocentric education to give us an African-centered worldview. We've got to do that for ourselves. So we're using their platform, to unravel our history and to communicate to our people the knowledge and the information that our great researchers, anthropologists, historians, and others are doing out there. So enough respect to you, Brother Vincent and Brother Chris. Dr. Abu, did you want to jump in before I bring in Brother Chris?
Yeah, you use the word that we are using their platform. In the same way we use their church to plan our revolt and all of things. What I'm saying that our people were genius. Our people speak in code, you know. Some of the gospel music that they're using today was our freedom song. You understand? We are planning a meeting to revolt and answer. So we raise a song. Meet me by the river. So you want to know, what time should I meet you by the river? When I fall on my knee with my face to the rising sun. You know, it's in the morning. We were genius. We were singing in code. When we sing, I'll fly away. You know, you think that is some heaven. No, we are flying away from the plantation. You got to understand the genius of us. You said some of us talk about the phoenix that risen from the ashes. What do you think they were talking about? Eh? You know how many of us fly away from the ashes in Haiti? You know how much of us fly away from the ashes in the Bahamas and Jamaica and all of these places? You see, we are not educated to think in our narrative. We just depend on the European narrative, and we want to put a rabbit foot in our pocket when we can put our own Akan symbol and all of these things. We are allowed to build our own gallows, and some of us are happy about it, and we don't understand who we really are, who we really, really are. And because the media will never tell us who we are. You understand? As Gil Scott saying, our revolution will never be televised. You understand? So we give thanks for this platform, because there's many platforms out there that wasn't ours, but we use them to our benefit. Voodoo.
Yeah, man, that's powerful, brother. Powerful.
Oh, voodoo. Come in now, Brother Chris.
Yeah, man, you know, first start off, just appreciate the discussion, you know, and we have to, again, just to elaborate on what Dr. Abu is saying, you know, we have to really get serious, or like we say in the Bahamas, get biggity about our history,
I like that.
Ourselves, right? And here's the thing. For the last 500 years, European well-being, Western civilization, as though their entire well-being has been utterly dependent on Africans.
That's right.
The problem is we've been convinced that that's no longer the case. When you have many people who would argue that that's more the case now than it was back then, especially when you look at globalization and the minerals that they use, you know. One of the chapters in my book, I used the Bahamian transatlantic slave trade as a microcosm for the wider, you know, just to kind of try to bring some semblance of the amount of money and profits and benefits that these people got from us. Just in the Bahamas now, in the Bahamas, we had a minuscule transatlantic slave trade in comparison, at least numerically speaking, of course, in comparison to Jamaica or Guyana or even a Barbados, even though today we have a similar population, right? And it's amazing to see how much was done. And when you look at the names of the men that owned these ships that came to the Bahamas, we're talking about people like Thomas Leland. These people are the founders of modern banking. We're talking about people like the Moss family. The Moss plantation was one of the biggest ones in the Bahamas. And most Bahamian history books tell you that cotton was never successful as a product during Bahamian slavery. And yet one island in the Bahamas was the number 5 biggest exporter of cotton to Liverpool over a 50-year period, even though that plantation only operated for 25 years. The money that was inherited from James and Henry Moss was inherited by their nephew, John Moss. And you could Google John Moss right now. He has his own Wikipedia page. He's considered one of the foremost pioneers of railroad building. You know, and even when they tell you this narrative that, oh, well, you know, the British didn't want to do slavery anymore because of the Industrial Revolution, all of that is foolishness, because the Industrial Revolution happened because of slavery. You understand? And again, this is just one island in the Bahamas. We have less than 400,000 people in our country. And yet that slave plantation, as a matter of fact, a plantation that my wife is actually connected to when I trace her roots. So I don't want them to think that we can let them get by easy. Now, this railroad was built from Liverpool to Manchester. This was one of the first intercity railroads ever built in human history, all because of this slavery going on this little island called Crooked Island. It's a fitting name, actually, Crooked Island, right? This same island they tell us, you know, well, slavery wasn't as bad, you know. They use statements like the slave master in the Bahamas didn't use the whip as more. And now you could see how the Bahamas is the quintessential example. We have people in the Bahamas who black like me, and they look at their slave masters as the paternalistic hero or as the father figure of their entire family. And so you could Google people like the man they call John Roll, who actually enslaved my ancestors coming through my grandmother's side from the island of Exuma. No, that's the same. And this is what shows you it. This is how the tourism industry has kind of polluted our cultural expression, if I'm being honest, because there's a fine line between service and servitude. You understand? And in Exuma and in these other places, you had all of these atrocities that were being committed. And Lord John Roll was the biggest slave owner in Exuma. And when you go to most of our tourism websites talking about Roll, they tell you, oh, Roll is the most prominent surname in the Bahamas. Oh, Lord John Roll owned this, he owned that. They modeled all of the settlements in Exuma after Devonshire and Yorkshire in England, which was the place that he owned, you know. The man wasn't worth nothing, absolutely nothing. The man, his biggest fame to claim was actually falling down on his face at Queen Victoria's coronation. And yet here in the Bahamas, we are taught to praise this man, and you know, and himself. Even now to this day, there's a building called the China Tower right there in London, Sister Shanice. Sorry, outside of London, in the area of Devon. I don't know exactly. I don't really care too much about British geography. But if you ask me about Africa, I can tell you a couple of things, you know. But it's in Devon or Yorkshire, in that area, and it's a place called the China Tower that was now a resort. And this was built using the money that was made off the enslavement of my personal ancestors. And his wife built it for him as a gift, just so he could have a place to place all of his quote-unquote China and all of the things that they raped from all of the different places where Britain had her claws sank in at those times. And honestly, I encourage people to look at contemporary Bahamian history, particularly those who are more conscious. If you're looking for some, it will make you laugh and it will make you cry, if that makes sense. Because they, like they say, there's this other segment in a popular Bahamian historical book as a Stubbs plantation down south in the Bahamas. These people were raking salt. A whole version of slavery that existed that's almost non-existent. For those who want more information, you could look up Mary Prince, who was the first published Black woman. I'm sure Sister Shanice may be familiar with her. Mary Prince, you know, she did more for emancipation than Wilberforce. Wilberforce is all strung out on opium, dealing with this lung infection. You understand what I'm saying? And so again, right, of course. And so this is why it's so important. She describes slavery in the Bahamas. Now, in this book, they tell you that Wade Stubbs was a good slave master. And their reasoning for saying that Wade Stubbs was a good slave master because he allowed one of his female slaves to name her son. And so because the guy, and look, this is the historical myopia that we often deal with too, you know, and the guy look at the list of the names of the slaves and say, oh my God, they're African names. His reasoning wasn't that, oh man, look at these awesome people who are doing everything in their power to retain their African heritage so that we don't forget. That's not his thought. His thought was, oh my God, look how nice this slave master is for allowing these women to name their children the names that they came from home with, right? And he was referring specifically to an enslaved little boy named Cujo, you know, and so I'm sure you could see the passion and the frustration that exudes, you know, and we still have people to this day who say things like the Christopher Columbus should remain on top of the hill at Government House, which is the seat of government, despite its colonial, of course, implications, but it's the highest seat of government in our country. Christopher Columbus's statue is there. And we have people saying, well, you know, it's the most photographed statue in the Bahamas when people come there. I work on the front lines with these tourists who come here and try to learn about our history. And 95% of them, when they take the picture, they say, what on God's earth is Christopher Columbus's statue doing, overlooking? You know, you understand? And then it's crazy. People do all these mental gymnastics and say, oh, well, you know, he didn't trade in slaves. I was like, yes, he did. Oh, he didn't do that. I was like, yes, he did. You know, he literally, you know, and then this is where it boils down to. If you have Christopher Columbus there as the most prominent statue in the Bahamas, we have problems very similar to certain areas in the United States, which is no surprise because, of course, as I mentioned, most of our slave masters came from there, right? And we have problems of violence and all of these things. And it's like, and then we even have this. So if these problems manifest the same in the Bahamas that we have today, you know, we have the same problems that most other people have. Of course, different ones will be more extreme in different areas, particularly for those like Haiti who actually fought and won their freedom, right? But we're expected to believe that, you know, it's absolutely crazy. You know, we expected to believe that these people from America came here. Something in the air in the Bahamas, you know, must have made them nicer people or something like that. And they went to sleep. So they came from South Carolina and North Carolina, you know, the worst places on earth to be an enslaved African. And all of a sudden they came to the Bahamas, went to sleep, woke up the next day, and it's like, you know what? I think we can start treating Africans differently, you know? And it's absolutely crazy. And it just shows you how much control they have had over the information in the Bahamas, you know. And so it's very refreshing when I'm able to share like this and have these conversations and hear people bouncing back and all of these things, you know. And then you always get the proverbial, oh, well, you know, we have British in our heritage, you know, and I have, you know, they tell me my great-great-grandfather was from Scotland. You want me to not like Scotland? That's who I am. And I say, okay, well, go to Scotland and apply for citizenship. That's all, you know. We that's the take I take on, and then they kind of get the point that I'm making, you know. And we have people again look like me, and they'd be like, "Oh, Davis, that's a Welsh name," and then you would see them making social media posts, you know. And of course, this is not unique to the Bahamas in any way, shape, or form, but because we are so closely family knit, you understand. And then it shows you again. My wife's name before she married me, of course, was Scavella. And of course, the Bahamas was a British colony. Her slave master was from Italy. The fella left Italy, came to the Bahamas, take a look around, saw people having indiscriminate sex with black women. He's like, you know what? I think I'm going to like it here. And he settled in the Bahamas. And almost every Scavella in the Bahamas, a massive family name, is descended from this Italian rapist who decided to establish a cotton plantation. You know, and this is where the colorism comes in. Because on one end, we have those that may be of a lighter hue. And of course, this all goes again to the survival mode. And you know, because of course, to be dark and to be phenotypically African, have that overt African look, even to this day, in certain circles, they frown on you for whatever reason. And the colorism, you know, it is very extreme. You know, we have people that literally put their health in danger to look less African. And that is absolutely insane. You know, you're putting your health in danger. Of course, it's more common among women, but it also happens among men as well. You know, but of course, women have a much higher standard to be beautiful than men do, you know. But so all of these things and reasons, I hope that the audience hears clearly this is why history is so important. When we talk of the railroads and all these things that I spoke about, you know, I often get when I teach, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to have a white man with me. To go with what Sister Sanish said, you know, and that's because we often view our history through the wrong lenses. Understand? Like at the very least, we should be like, oh my God, how did these people survive this for me to be here and to continue on this fight, you know? And then of course we have all of these revolts, all of these examples, too many to name. And the scary part is just imagine how many went undocumented. And I take a pretty extremist view when it comes to who our heroes are, because, you know, people will call a name like William Wilberforce And yes, he was in Parliament arguing, and he's doing all of this stuff and taking all the credit. But for me, that little 5-year-old girl who woke up on the slave plantation, who was supposed to pick 5 bales of cotton, and she only picked 1. And then when it was time for her to give the mistress of the plantation her bowl of soup, she put all her boogers in that bowl of soup. You know what I mean? And all. She did more for us than William will before us, who only never experienced slavery. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is what we have to do. Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. We are just 15 minutes away from the top of the hour. I did actually put the link in the chat to invite those who might want to join us to jump on. And I can see that our brother Kwame Gonza has jumped on. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you. Greetings to everyone. Greetings, Sheila, Dr. Abu. Greetings to Brother Chris and Vincent. Greetings to everyone. Thank you so much.
So I don't know how long you were actually in the audience for and listening, and how much you actually got of the wonderful story of Junkanoo that our brother Chris was sharing, and the discussion that we were having about the importance of our history and the extent to which it's been concealed and misrepresented and hidden from us, you know, and the works that we have to do as a people to uncover our history and to tell our narrative for ourselves. So let's hear a few words from you, my brother, and then we're going to go around the panel for the last time.
Yes, definitely. History is very, very important. I came to Ghana, and that is why I found that history was documented. People like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah documented their history. When they had their thoughts, they wrote them down, and the speeches also were compiled. The first book which really fascinated me when I read was called The Selected Speeches of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And I was fascinated by this figure because every time he was speaking, in his speeches, all his speeches, whether he was speaking to women, whether he was speaking to children, he was talking about Africa. Whatever, there's nowhere he spoke. There's no function at which he spoke, and he never mentioned Africa. So Africa was the theme in everything he did. And you can find you find that he wrote about more than 20 books and pamphlets during his life. And history can never be over emphasized. This is someone who died in 1972, about 14 years before I was born. But after 40 years, I come across his writings. So this is history. This is how important history. But to go back to his time when he existed, he actually invited Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois to Ghana to try to compile a project. He was working, Dr. Du Bois, before he died, he was working on a project called the Encyclopedia Africana, like how we see Encyclopedia Britannica. So they were compiling Encyclopedia Africana, which was supposed to encompass all the achievements of the Black people. Unfortunately, when Dr. Du Bois died and Dr. Nkrumah was overthrown from power, those documents were destroyed. The people were backed by neo-colonialism. They came and destroyed a lot of things. So there's a lot of things which we need to rebuild. The other thing which I would say that it is kind of unfortunate that our history is not in the mainstream, the real history. And that is unfortunate, but again, it is a good thing that our ancestors have left some of the books and they have written them, so we can find them and refer to them and continue the struggle, because that is where we get the strength from. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you too, Brother Kwame, reinforcing the importance for us to be documenting our history. All righty, let's go around the panel, a couple of minutes each, 2 minutes per person. Brother Vincent, let's bring you in here. A lot has been said since the last time you spoke.
Oh, great. Brother Kwame Gonza, it's so great, this idea you brought. I think Africa needs to document its history. Additionally, we should not let people influence us to bring down our own that want to champion uprising, like bring up awareness to our race. Okay, we tend to be influenced most of the time to bring down the good work that people are doing because we're not involved. One, because we've been one way or the other brainwashed to do that, and it has cut our history halfway. And I think that on political levels, on socioeconomic levels, on cultural levels, we should be wise enough. If people are giving us ideas that will cut the advancement of our race and all that, we shouldn't be selfish, you know. And it's one thing that's going on in each and every African country and in every Caribbean country, and all that runs around. And my advice to the whole race and generation, if we want to be stronger, let's support people. It doesn't take one time to build, you know, and I think that's what
Indeed. Thank you so much, Brother Vincent, for those closing remarks there. We certainly do need to be far more supportive of each other and the works that we're doing. I noticed in the chat, a brother was saying that he's produced a book and some poems, but most of his buyers are non-Africans. So come on, we've got our work to do to support each other. Let's go over to Sister Sheila to hear some closing remarks and some summarizing from her.
I have learned a lot today, and I've picked off words that I will be putting them into use. I have picked off the phrase genocidal maniacs. Brother Chris, thank you very much. I have also picked off historical myopia and having this father figure, paternalistic father figure that is a genocidal maniac as a father figure. And I'm reminded what the president of the country I come from was in the UK a few weeks ago. And he had come to do many things. Amongst them, he had come to receive donations of the biological device that is being put into people. And that device is wreaking havoc in the people in my country. It is actually, we had not been hit a lot with the issue that's going on. I don't want to name names because they get flagged up. So we've not been hit badly. But after receiving these hundreds of thousands of donation of this biological device, the device now, I believe the device is the issue.
That's right.
So, and it comes down to us having historical myopia that we were colonized by the very people that are now giving us donations to contribute to our health. It makes you sit down and say, you know what, at this point, we really need to, is it get biggity? Did you say get biggity?
Get biggity, get biggity.
Yeah, we need to get biggity. Yes, we need to. And this is the very important reason why we need to learn our history. When we learn our story, we end up knowing who are our people and who are our enemies. My people, stay woke. Know your history. Know who is your person and know who is against you. I give thanks for this session.
We give thanks to you as well, Sister Sheila. Such a true word spoken there. Our history has been turned upside down, and there's so much historical ignorance among us about the truth of our history. As you was saying there, and as was being said earlier, we're worshipping those who don't have our best interest at heart. We're trusting those who historically, who throughout our history have demonstrated over and over again that they don't have our best interest at heart. But because there is that ignorance of our history amongst the majority of us as a people, and there is instead, through religion as well, this worshipping of whiteness, a lot of our people are going to fall victims of that poisonous toxin that you were referring to. It's a sad day indeed. But, you know, to those of us who are woke, we will push on. Dr. Abu, let's bounce
Budum
over to
family.
you.
Budum,
Budum.
you know, our magic is in our costume. Our magic is in our clothes. You know, the reason why I don't go to carnival anymore because it's all bra and bikini. And it's nothing to do with us. You understand? And this is what they have done to you and done to all of us. Instead of we inspiring one another, we are entertaining one another with the European narrative. So I give thanks to Brother Chris. I give thanks to Brother Vincent. And Kwame, give thanks to you also. Sister Sheila, all the time. And Sister Shanice, we's all we have. We are the only friend we have. Any other thing is friendly fire. Voodoo.
Voodoo. Right, so Dr. Abu. Oh, so true. And let's go over to Chris for some final words. You've got about 3 minutes.
So we have to realize, and this again, specifically for us, of course, we're talking about African people, but this again applies to all people. History is the greatest unifying force, bar none, in my opinion. Let's look at these white Americans. Their history that they believe is completely swept around and washed. You know, some of them believe the Confederacy were the good guys. You know, some of them believe that the Second Amendment is actually an honorable thing and that it wasn't done to murder Africans and indigenous Americans. You understand? And notice how unified they are behind that lie, though. You know, they stormed the Capitol the other day. They do all of these things unified behind a blatant lie. And the truth is something to be ashamed of. So imagine when we really start immersing in our culture, in our history, and in our heritage. One of my mentors, not mentor, but someone I follow who I love dearly, Dr. John Henry Clark, said, the missing pages of world history is in fact African history.
Yeah.
Dr. Kwame Ture said, aka Stokely Carmichael, we have to have an undying love for African people. And of course, what Sheila said is kind of right in line with it. We have to, and another term I can bring forth is the myth of the white man's burden. How is it that we built up these nations? They exploited us so much, committed murders that they could never monetarily, socially, politically pay us back for. And yet we owe them money. We are the countries that are indebted to them. You understand? One of the big problems is, again, we don't understand our history. And so we view certain things, we view this journey through events instead of as a process. And so we look at something, for example, like emancipation. Then we look at something like independence as an event and not a process. It's a process and not an event. Yeah. And so I'll close on people really having to immerse themselves in their history. We have to remove all of these different borders that separate us, you know, religion, as Sister Shanice always points out, you know, and here in the Bahamas, I saw some comment where it was like, we have 91 churches per square mile. We have pastors here that argue with Jamaicans about who has the most churches per capita. And, you know, we always say, oh, well, people always say, oh, we need the church. The church is the way, the church is the way. I was like, we have thousands of churches, like 3 people could go to every church in this country. You understand? And yet you think we need more churches? Like, come on, man. You know, so it's again, undying love for ourselves, realizing that we are in this bucket, figuratively speaking, as black crabs. As long as we remain in this bucket as black crabs, the only time we can get anywhere is when the person who put you in the bucket pick up the bucket and move everybody together. But key and not to remember is we ain't going nowhere unless all of us go in somewhere, you know, and to immerse yourself in that culture, in that history. You know, you hear the boy saying Vadum, you hear Sister Shanice saying Ashe. If you don't understand these words, even my name, go and research that, you know. We don't all have to be holding hands, saying Kumbaya, praying to the same God, you know, eating the same diet and all this stuff to get across this finish line, man. So we have to immerse ourselves, and all of us have an important role to play, especially women, in my view, you know. And I'll close on that because I know I have a tendency to be a little long-winded. Yes, but thank you again. to the panel and Sister Shanice. I will be forever grateful to you and allowing me to share with everybody on your platform.
Thank you so much for the great works, my brother. Absolutely phenomenal works. For the time you spent doing the research, we celebrate you. We thank you. So just want to remind everybody in the group that there is a great event coming up. It's the celebration of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's Earth Day. You've already missed the first session, which was yesterday, but the next one is on Friday the 17th, and it's from 4 to 6 p.m. Ghana time. And there'll be a number of great speakers who will be on the platform to educate us and edutain us on that day. So if you want more information, let me give you an email address. Here it is there on the screen. Hope you can see that. Go to kniiafrica@gmail.com and they will email you a link. Okay, that's kniiafrica@gmail.com, and let's start unifying as a people across the borders, across the seas. You know, so much we've got to do. And also please do remember our appeal for Haiti. You can go to Eventbrite to join our event that's going to be happening on Sunday the 26th. It's going to be a great event. We've got artists, we've got music, we've got auctions going on, international speakers. Dr. Abu's going to be there. He's going to be doing one of his poems. We've got Brother Kwame Gonza who's coming as well. He's going to rise us up. We've got some UK artists. We've got artists from Jamaica, artists from Uganda. We've got a number of speakers who are going to be giving some risings up. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And you can get your ticket at Eventbrite for that one. Also remember that we're fundraising for Haiti via Gofundme as well, so please do support that. Family, you've been absolutely phenomenal. I just want to close this wonderful session where we're talking about the importance of our history to remind all of us really that our history is, as been said, something that could unify us as a people. So let's start studying our history. It's time for change. It's time for us as a people to be the ones who are talking about, you know, our story from our perspective. So we rise up Brother Chris and Brother Vincent for the works that they're doing. And we look forward to inviting you back before the Junkanoo Festival that's going to be taking place in March next year in Ghana. And Sister Sheila's already said she's looking forward to it. So those of you in the group who are looking forward to that and maybe want some more information, Brother Chris, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, all of my personal social media platforms, and I forgot to mention this to Sheila, actually, because you mentioned I say it, Vincent, just correct me after I say it, because I know I don't say it correctly. Sankofa Flamingo. Sankofa Flamingo, right? That is the name of my book. That is the name of my research entity, you know, and I pretty much entwined the national bird of the Bahamas with the all-powerful and encompassing Sankofa bird. Right. And of course, you can also reach me at the World Junkanoo Festival Foundation. That's on Facebook and Instagram. Sankofa Flamingo as well on Facebook and Instagram as well. And that's how you can reach me.
Wonderful, wonderful. To all of our viewers in the audience, thank you all so much. And we look forward to you joining us again next strong, and hopefully looking forward to seeing some of you on Friday at that wonderful event that's coming up. Rise up, family. More love, more power, more voodoo to each and every one of you.
Kawo Kabi, see you later.